like working with your hands? Enjoy figuring out how a machine works? Then a career in the manufacturing cluster might be for you. Manufacturing workers use equipment to turn raw materials into final products that are sold to buyers. Manufacturing work refers not only to people who make the products, but the many people in management, engineering, design, and other areas. You might design a new product, decide how the product will be made, make the product, or install or repair products or equipment. You might work on cars, computers, appliances, airplanes, electronic devices, and more. There are over 140 careers across 6 career pathways in manufacturing. The pathways include health, safety, and environmental assurance, logistics and inventory control, maintenance, installation and repair, manufacturing, production, process development, production, quality assurance.
This is Lay's Mining Services, and we're located here in Mount Vernon, Illinois. We do a lot in the mining industry. So we have parts that come from all over the world. We do a lot of work overseas. Everything from the reverse engineering when the parts come in, to the disassembly, to the assembly, to everything in between. Education is in industrial technology and also the mining program that RLC offered. So I started out welding. Then I would get sent out in the field to inspect and do failure analysis on components. So from that, the more I got sent in the field, then I become more of a regional director, where I was at that point where I would just go in and I would do failure analysis and that to see, why something wasn't lasting as long or why they wasn't getting the hours that they needed out of it. So that's a lot of what we do here, is solve customers' issues. Sometimes it's metallurgical, sometimes it's not enough weld, poor design, and the young engineers, I would take them out with me, and we would do in-field RE, reverse engineering, modeling, 3D scanning of components, and that kind of stuff like that, which is where the future is right now. So we can actually go in the field and scan, model a part, and produce it here.
Okay, so what happens is over time this rope groove down here wears. So this will all have to be machined out, disassembled. We'll tear this down, pull the bearings and everything out of it, and then you'll get into a raw ship like this. Those are being inspected and finished paint to go out the door. But just to follow the process, this is what comes in, and this is where they wear, and this is the bearings that fail internally. And we've welded up the rope groove, and we've machined it back and cut the angles on it. Now we'll build the bore up. So this is a submerged arc process here. This isn't running at the moment, but this is the bearing surfaces in here that get built up, and then that will go to machine shop then to be finished back to size. These all have to be within a couple thousandths of an inch. So this is one of the larger ships that we will rebuild here. As you can see, we're building up the rope groove right now in here. That area gets worn, just constant turning back and forth, switch directions with like a 5-inch cable that runs through that ship. So we build up the flanges, we build up the rope groove itself, and we'll weld out the angles, and we'll machine that back down to spec. Okay, so this is a sister ship, probably the one down there. We've welded, and now we've machined the rope groove profile. We've cut the angles back, put the radiuses back in it to finish the ODs. Now what we're getting ready to do is the flame hardening. So this is a fairly soft material that we put in. So we're going to put the heat to it, and then it gets a water quench behind it. And that is what puts the hardness into these for their wear. What we're doing now is we're doing a weld build-up, the bases here, and then we'll have to go back in and put these bolt holes back in there. This is once again only half. You can see the size of this. So over time, this is a drum that cable wraps up on and the hoist and drag. The lagging wear is in these areas. So we've gone in here, we've welded all this up. basically we've kind of showed you a start to finish. When the shift comes in and the wear in the rope groove and the bearings have failed, now we've gone in, we've built up the board, steps in there for the bearing seat, and then the rope groove itself. So we're going to machine it. By process it comes in, first we disassemble it, we might measure, figure out the actual wear percentages of it, and then we'll go in. Most times they have to be stress relieved so we can start cutting on it. We have to cut out the old hard material, then we'll start welding, then we'll start machining, and then we flame harden it.
You get to build stuff that you really hardly ever see. I mean, you don't get to see these kind of parts. These are big parts. Most little machine shops, I mean, it's just small stuff. We're kind of a unique company. There's only a couple in the world that do what we do. Mount Vernon, you wouldn't think anything would be like this in Mount Vernon because there's nothing around here anymore, but for us, we're centrally located, so that's why it makes sense for us to be here. Yeah.
I like coming in here. Personally, I like machining. I really do. I enjoy it. I'm not so intrigued with welding, but machining, I like just the idea of taking a blueprint and shaving the metal down and getting the part to its specs, to its blueprint. Kind of a perfectionist, not that bad. And so it's easy for me to get it, really get intrigued with this job because you only have one objective way of doing something. Your blueprint's going to be going to determine what your part's going to look like. Sort of sculpting it, if you will. And so that's what I kind of like about it. So, really what you need for this job is just common sense and being able to read a tape measure, being able to read scales. But really just having common sense and being willing to learn, being humble, being willing to listen. Because there's a lot of guys around here that know what they're doing, and if you're willing to be humble and learn and listen, you'll learn. So be ready to learn, be ready to work.
My name is Allison Allgaier. I am the president of Phoenix Modular Elevator, located here in Mount Vernon. We manufacture modular elevators, which is a welded steel shaft or hoistway with all of the elevator components pre-installed in it. And we ship them as a fully complete unit on flatbed trucks, crane them into place, and it's a fast way to add an elevator to a building. Modular elevators were invented in Mount Vernon back in the mid-90s when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, and three guys figured that a lot of people would be adding elevators to buildings. So they ran it and manufactured the elevators as Infinite Access until 2008, and they went out of business. I was looking for a small manufacturing company to buy. I used to work in a big manufacturing and came across the assets, and so acquired them and restarted the company. We rebranded it as Phoenix Modular Elevator, started up in 2009, and we've grown ever since. I love seeing a product that we make every day. We can measure the outcomes of what we do every single day. How far did we make in producing elevators? How far did we get? How many did we make? I also really like working with customers and understanding what their needs are and coming up with a solution, an elevator that serves their needs and gives it to them fast and makes it easy. The process of installing an elevator out in the field, if you talk to any general contractor, they hate the elevator. And our tagline is, we make elevators easy, because it's fast, it's almost all the way done when it arrives on the job site, and it goes in and there's no problems, and it takes away a lot of headaches. So I love satisfying customers that way. A lot of times when people think about manufacturing, they think about people on the production assembly line making stuff, and that is about 3/4 of our employees. But there's also a whole lot of support staff that make sure that the product can be made. And so we have purchasing, we have sales, we have marketing, we have engineering, we have accounting. And so those functions that exist really in any company also exist in manufacturing. What you earn really depends on what kind of job you do. We have entry-level manufacturing jobs where out of high school you can start at $11 to $13 an hour. We manufacture elevators, and so within that manufacturing, the range is probably up to about $18 an hour. If you become an elevator mechanic, they make $40 an hour plus. The skills that are required to work here really depends on, again, whether it's an office job or a production job. On the production side, we really look for people who like to make things and like to see a product at the end of the day, who enjoy working with their hands. The skills needed would be to read a tape measure, to use power tools. We have some higher skilled positions like wiring, welding. Those you can either learn in school through a degree program, or we also do a lot of training in-house. We have an apprenticeship program to train our elevator mechanics, and usually pick the high potential people from the manufacturing side to go into that program and become elevator mechanics. If you think that this is the type of place that you'd want to work someday, on the production side in particular, pay attention to math class. Take some vocational ed classes, because that will give you the opportunity to learn to use tools, learn to read a measuring tape, cut things, read prints, make stuff. And if you really like making stuff or fixing stuff, that's probably a really good fit to come work for us.
Our job story and how we earn a living is we are a small manufacturing company. And we actually started out of a garage here in Mount Vernon as a small sewing company, and we actually do automotive sewing work for the automotive industry. We make returnable packaging, what they call whip packaging for the automotive industry. What started off as a 2 or 3 bag orders, or very small orders, less than $100 at a time, slowly grew over time to where next thing you know they were $1,000 orders, all the way up to $10,000 and $20,000 orders, and we have slowly developed over time from there. Our typical day-to-day work is probably not very typical. Every day it seems like we overcome new challenges, being that we are in the automotive industry. It seems like the automotive industry is always changing, especially being in the packaging side of automotive industry. There's days that we'll get phone calls and we're going to start a brand new project today because somebody is in need of something. We are really more of a service company than we are a sewing company. So we challenge ourselves to service our customers the best we can. Sometimes it requires us to go out of the way and make changes on a split-second decision to help ratify their needs and get them out of a bind. So we have several different job types available. Obviously, being a sewing industry, a lot of it revolves around having the ability to be able to sew. Everybody starts off as a basic pre-assembler, which is the first step of the sewing process to make a product, all the way up to our final assemblers, which is actually the people we rely on the most. They're the last person to see the product before our customer does, so we put a lot of responsibility on them. We also have CAD capabilities here, so CAD design work is very important to us. Companies, especially with our COVID pandemic lately, is going off of email and 3D CAD drawings being sent to us, and being able to read and operate CAD is very essential. And of course, the daily business side of things of paying the bills and marketing to customers. Our manufacturing salary will typically range between $35,000 to $45,000 a year. We also offer a full benefits package, so there's benefits on top of that as far as health insurance and paid time off. We are a Monday through Friday position here, but therefore that does allow our employees to spend more time with their family and have a somewhat normal day-to-day lifestyle.
I'm a final assembler here at Schulte Industries, so I take all the components and I put them into our final product. And I also act as the floor manager, so I come in and I set everybody up and make sure they're all doing their job. And I'm also kind of a quality control, because I'm the last person to see most of our products that go out. So if it goes out the door wrong, it comes back on me. So I have to make sure my work is correct, I have to make sure all the component work is correct, I have to make sure everything's cut the way it's supposed to be cut. Be patient, be willing to learn. It takes time to perfect this. I've been sewing for probably almost 10 years, and not everybody can jump in and do that. It takes time, repetitive movement. Previously, I'd worked for another manufacturing company for about 5 years, and they taught me to sew. If I wouldn't have known to sew, working here, you would have been taught to sew.
Unfortunately, with our industry, not a lot of people come to be able to sew here. Or learn to sew or know how to sew before they come here. So we train them to sew. It's more of the basic life skills that we're looking for. Somebody that is responsible, somebody with the ability to show up on time, somebody that's willing to try. If we can get somebody to try, they will exceed at sewing. Probably the biggest advice I could give to somebody is keep an open mind. The biggest thing is we've had a lot of people come through here, a lot of employees, and some really good employees that never thought they would sit behind a sewing machine and sew for a living. Saying that, they do sit behind a sewing machine and sew for a living, obviously, and keep an open mind. And you notice that there's other challenges out there that you may not see, but can be very lucrative for not only the employer, but also the employee.
When I was in high school, I took vocational machine shop in Mount Vernon. I went to Waltonville. Really liked working with my hands and actually building a product. So took the vocational, got a job in Waltonville for a local machine shop. Ended up buying him out. We grew that company, ended up selling it to our competitor. Took about 1.5 years off, built a house, got into the cabinet making business for a few years, grew that company, sold it, Then decided, I miss the steel industry. So that's when we started Magnum Steel in 2005. We started out in a little old pole barn with no heat, no equipment, nothing to work with. Grew it, ended up building a 33,000 square foot facility on the east side of town. Same way, kept growing, outgrew that building, so then we built this building, which is 128,000 square feet. So a job shop means that we don't focus on just one particular product and make that only. We fix or build anything, from the coal mine industry to Continental Tire to anything. So they're liable to call me and hand me a handful of parts and say, we broke this, I need a new one, but I need it right now. So we house a lot of materials here so that we can get them back up and running as quick as possible.
Every day is a little bit different. Mostly I'm still operating the same few machines, but I'm mostly making parts out of steel or aluminum, programming a machine into the computer, how I want to make this part and draw its shape, and then put in my tooling, put in my parts, and run that and make a part out of one solid piece of steel. But every day it's a different part, and I have multiple parts in a day, so at least it changes things up a little bit, makes it different. So I had already made a program for it, designed to make the part that's needed based off the blueprint, and I have a set of jaws in the machine that's set for a specific size of material, and I put the metal in, close the jaws, and it holds on to the part for me, and I tell the machine how far it's sticking out, and I dial in my tools to where they're at the proper heights, and then I load the program and I set my feeds and speeds and I press go, and it starts cutting the part and making the part that I had programmed in the computer. I think what I love the most about my job is every day, like, I can always innovate and create an easier way for my job. I may run the same job 10 times, but each time I run it, I figure out a faster way to make it, a better way to make it, an easier way to make it. I like that there's room for growth. It's not the same thing every day to where it can't get any better. It's important to have not just one particular job you're looking at. You need to kind of branch out around it a little bit, because there are more opportunities down the line. If you know how to weld and machine, you might be somewhere where you become more handy because you can weld a part and then machine it, and you become more valuable to a company. So I think it's important, and that was just one of the skills I brought in, is having a little bit of diversity in my training.
I started welding when I was in high school. After that, I got a job and was welding, and luckily enough, I had people that were kind enough to teach me the right way. I do have special training. I am a certified weld inspector. I did have to take seminars and classes and a 3-hour, 3-part test. You have to know different processes in welding, use different tools of the trade as far as measuring, tape measures, micrometers, calipers, stuff like that. My advice would be not to give up, work as hard as you can. If you work as hard as you can, eventually somebody will notice that and help you out along the way.
If you are interested in a career in manufacturing, Rend Lake College is here to help you prepare with a variety of programs to develop the knowledge and skills needed. RLC has technical career education programs such as Manufacturing Technology Associate of Applied Science degree, Certified Production Technician Certificate, Basic Machining Certificate, Welding Technology Associate of Applied Science degree, Welding Fundamentals Certificate, Advanced Metalworking Certificate, Advanced Welding Techniques Certificate, Pipe Welding Techniques Certificate, Industrial Electronics and Maintenance Technician Associate of Applied Science degree, Industrial Maintenance Multi-Tech Certificate, Industrial Maintenance Technician Certificate, Programmable Logic Controller Certificate, Robots and Automation Certificate, or a transfer degree program such as Industrial Technology Associate of Science degree.